When you're working with watercolors in digital format, it's good to just play with the brushes to get a feel for what they do. Because watercolor is one of the things that is most challenging to try to imitate in digital art. So what we're going to do, I'm using ArtRage Lite. You can get that at artrage.com for about $29. If you have an iPad or Android tablet, you can get it for, I forget what the price is, but it's only a few dollars to get the app. If you're working from a Windows or Mac desktop, then it's again, it's $29. It's a great little program, great app, and it probably imitates watercolor better than just about any that I've found. So with that, let's begin to see what we can see. I've already recorded this, so I'm going to talk through, and we'll see what we're going to do. I'm selecting my watercolor brush, and I'm opening the presets. These are all preset brushes that you can use that are, again, configured to imitate watercolor. And now you can change the settings on all of these, but it's better to start by just experimenting with what exists, and then you can start to tweak the settings. And I'll show you in another video how to do that. But for starters, we're just going to go over here and let's get a green color. And I'm going to start with delicate on dry, but I'm going to make a mistake here because when I start painting, it is not delicate on dry. What I've done, I forgot to actually click on that, and it does help to click on the brush you're trying to use. So let's try that again. I'm clicking on delicate on dry, and I'm going to make the brush a little bigger this time so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so there we go. And that really has a nice feel. It's, again, as if you're painting. It says on dry, but it seems to have quite a lot of paint there. Now notice as I come across, it's actually as if I'm coming across with a wetter brush, and that's a very good watercolor effect. Look at the edge down there where it comes out and the paint is kind of dark around the edge. That's pretty realistic. Now I switched to dried strokes. Now this is what would be called dry brush technique in regular watercolors. And so I'm using a brush with not a lot on it and on very dry paper. So the other one is more on wet paper. Now watch what happens when I come back across it. Okay, so I'm still painting dry on dry. And this is, again, this would be called glazing in regular watercolor, where you're layering different colors on themselves. For example, let me show you. I'm going to put some blue down here. Let's go with a little lighter shade of blue. Okay, now watch what's going to happen. I'm going to come in with yellow. This is also going to show you a little quirk of color mixing in digital art. Coming with yellow over blue. Now that should make green, but in most cases, yellow and blue won't make green in digital art. It'll usually make kind of a yellowish blue, for lack of a better term. I don't really even know what to call the color, kind of a bluish gray maybe. Now here I'm going to show you blue mixed with red, and that does mix correctly. We do have a purple effect coming. Let's try laying down again some red. Let's go to yellow again and come back in. We should get orange here, and that's what we're going to get. And this is glazing. Again, if you were doing this in regular watercolors, that's what you would be doing. You'd be letting some color dry and then coming in on top of it with another color or with an extra shade of the same color. Okay, so let's go down to dry on wet and harsh lines. Those are the next two, and they're really pretty similar. This is, again, very strong color. Let's see when I come across it. Okay, I don't really see any difference at all. The edges are kind of fuzzy. Let's go down to harsh lines, see what we get. Okay, same thing, but the edges are a little sharper. Yeah, let's go with red. That'll make those stand out a little bit more. Now come across it, and you can see a little bit of mixing there, but not a lot. Now, when we come across that green, look what happens. It mixes as it goes across, and then when the brush comes out, it's actually picked up the green and carries it along. And that's fairly accurate. You wouldn't get quite that dramatic a result with watercolor. It would depend on how much water is in the brush. Okay, we're coming across now with, again, the blue over the yellow, and you still get that kind of muddy blue. Okay, let's try heavy bleed. This would typically be a lot of pigment and a lot of water. So I see the rough edges. I see how the paint is kind of pooling around the edges. When I come across it, it does look like I'm bringing water into it. And again, you're getting a very similar effect as you come through here as with the other two brushes. It's picking up the color. Okay, let's check just a spot. Well, just a spot is pretty accurate. What you're getting here is it's as if you're using a brush, maybe a very small brush that doesn't have a lot of water in it, and you're getting a spot that kind of points out with a droplet shape and more intense pigment at the end. And that's the one thing that's different. You get most of your pigment when you first put it down. Now I've switched to just water, and as I come across, well, it is like I'm adding water. You wouldn't get that clean of an effect, but look here. It's picking up some of that blue now that I've gone, now I've gone over to the green, and that blue is continuing along. But when I come out here, it's still just water. Okay, so let me come over here. But when I come into the yellow, it's got that blue, even though I didn't dip into anything. And that's because my color setting is set on blue. And so it's when it interacts with other paint, it's as if I'm, again, using kind of a dirty brush. So I come over here and change that to a clean white, and I'm still going to get the color mix. But then when I come back out, it's not going to continue on. Now, look here. This is really cool, because this is very similar to what you would do in watercolors. Is I'm coming in on, if I've got wet paper, I'm coming in on that edge and I'm softening it a little bit. So that's cool. Low blending. All right, let's see what low blending does. I'm going to stick with my blue, but it helps not to just have it pure white. Okay, there we go. Okay, low blending is pretty similar to a couple of the other ones. I'm not seeing a huge difference. It's blending in, roughly similar. Still getting my muddy blue color there. Okay, small strokes on wet. Small strokes on wet is kind of like just a spot, except it's got more water and it goes farther. So if I shrink that down really small, it could be used like a rigger brush, which is a very narrow, long, thin brush that you might use to paint grass or something with. And if I drag it through the other colors, it picks up the colors and blends them. Okay, so let's make that bigger again. And as I bring it through, now look, I'm getting a lot of nice blending here. As it goes through that red, I'm getting purple, and that's pretty cool. But it is a clean brush when I take it out. Okay, thin strokes on wet. Let's see what the difference is here. Okay, very similar, just doesn't have as much water in it. And so not as much water or as much pigment, so it's be nice for just adding subtle color. Unclean brush. If you'll notice down by the color wheel, a little water glass has showed up. That's because this unclean brush will pick up other colors and it will keep them. Watch as when I go through a color here, it's going to pick it up, and then that's the color I'm painting with, which is really cool if you're looking for kind of different color mixing effects. It's almost like mixing, right on the canvas or right on the paper. But if you want to clean your brush out, then you go over and click on that water glass, and it will get the excess paint out of the brush, and then you'll be back to whatever your pure color is. I like the unclean brush effect. It's really pretty cool, and it is very realistic for watercolors. Okay. I'm having fun playing with that one. So, almost there. Let's try a little yellow. I want to get a little yellow and see what it does going through that gray. And I get kind of a yellow-gray. Okay, let's try wet on wet. That's the last one. This is one of the more interesting effects. It's not really a good watercolor effect, but it is interesting. Watch what it does. When I come across another color, it intensifies that color. Again, that's not what would happen with watercolors, but it is still pretty cool. Watch when I come across these ones. I've got yellow, I've got purple, I've got intense red. So, depending on the kind of effect you were trying to create, you could lay in some light colors and then come in with that on top of them and really get some intense color effects. So anyway, those are the brushes: delicate on dry, dried strokes, dry on wet, harsh lines, heavy bleed, just a spot, just water, low blending, small strokes and thin strokes on wet, unclean brush, and wet on wet. Try these, have some fun with them, and again, just experiment. Enjoy yourself, have fun, and next time I will come back with a video to show you how to tweak those brushes just a little bit. And that's all for today.